You know, the real horrifying element of this movie isn't all the body horror, but the themes about relationships. So, now that's truly terrifying. Also, sorry in advance again if I look down while doing this video. It's just what it is, and hey, if that's a problem, you can always just listen to this and look away, much like how scary this movie is. You try to figure out how to start talking about this movie without even knowing if mentioning the premise might ruin the surprise if you went in blind. Okay, maybe you're probably not, but it's just because I wouldn't say I had this movie spoiled for me. It's what worries me. I knew the premise going in, but I'll get to that in a bit. I'll address the elephant in the room. But for now, let me talk about this movie on its own. Anyways, The Substance. Okay, I'm going to talk about that movie in comparison. The Substance was my favorite movie of 2024, and based on the trailer, it looked like that movie, but this time with two people. I know I said I liked about that movie was the tragedy, was the self-madeness of it. It was a self-made tragedy. Because, how the constant worrying she got, you think it can't get worse, but it does. And obviously the time frame wouldn't make this a copy of that. But with movies like that being nominated for Best Picture, people, at least in a general sense, might get a better understanding that Cronenberg-esque horror movies can have meaning behind them. Like David Cronenberg movies. In ways more down-to-earth movies can, in comparison, because horror can elevate its audience into positions they never imagined themselves in, and really question what we do in the same scenario. I mean, the movie is very different. It was sold from the main leads being a real-life couple, the 100% Rotten Tomatoes in the advertisements since Sundance, and of course, the premise itself, to me, is what just sold me, because I like the concept. The movie is written and directed by Michael Shanks in his feature-length debut, and he brings the perfect horror movie for a couple with, let's say, a particular taste in cinema. I'm being around the bush, just like the couple in this movie. Okay, the premise is pretty simple, but as it goes on, oh boy, and I'm so glad another great movie came out this year. Like, it feels like not as many as there should be have come out yet, out of the 50 I've seen. So the premise of this movie is Dave Franco as Tim and Alison Brie as Millie are a couple who, after being in a long-time relationship, love each other so much they moved from New York City together to move into the countryside, despite some conflict I'll get into later. What ends up happening beyond anything they imagine is after a hike gone wrong, they return home where Tim discovers this possession on him and that both mentally and physically attracts himself towards Millie. The more she's away from him or when she opens up to him, as over time, Millie discovers this horrific feeling too, and the two question what's going on. The movie builds up to the body horror of the two of them fusing their bodies together and are unsure if they can stop it or if they should embrace it at all. And as you got from the title, their bodies, and maybe even more, their souls are going to be trapped together as the horror unravels, if it's inevitable or not. Like, just imagine if this happened to me. Granted, going in for me, I sort of knew where it was going because of the lawsuit. So to address the elephant in the room, 2 years ago, a movie called Better Half by Patrick Henry Fallon apparently came out, but I can't find it online anywhere to watch. But the director apparently pitched the movie to Brie and Franco to star in, so he's suing this movie for supposedly taking the idea, and I have no idea if it's true or not. I honestly believe it is coincidence. So the director said he had the idea in 2019, and frankly, it just happens in Hollywood. When you can't explain it, for better or worse, movies like A Bug's Life to Ants, Armageddon to Deep Impact, White House Down and Olympus Has Fallen, etc. It happens. I know plenty of people who definitely didn't see that movie because I can't find it. Just assume based on the article, if it's possible, it has to be true, because how dare we not have a chance to actually compare this and see if it's possible. But for me, I don't know, and I just want to get this out of the way to say that if you look up the premise of Better Half, it does have some similarities that risk ruining some of the surprise of why it happens in this movie. But regardless, if it's true, sorry in advance about what I'm praising about this movie does on its own and saying how great it is for being original. When, let's just say this, I just really like this movie and I want to talk about. And with all that out of the way, Together is an excellent body horror film unlike anything I've seen before, or at least the feeling it gave me. I talked about The Substance earlier, but to be honest, this movie scared me more, or at least made me more uncomfortable. And I think how that movie works storytelling-wise is a self-made tragedy is different when in context. What happens when two people do this to each other, or at least, let alone specifically how it's done in this movie. When the movie doesn't hide what's going to happen, the slow build to it, like, does make it all the more horrifying as you don't know if it's going to happen the way it does. Like, there's a different example occurs at the beginning. It might be in the trailer. There was a paper that if you saw in the trailer, you're like, oh, okay, that's how this movie starts. But Either way, it does make it all the more horrifying as you don't know if it's going to happen the way it occurs, or maybe it's not as bad as it sounds, but the choice is taken away. And the movie has this bizarre as it is, the premise is also a great dark comedy and would speak a lot about relationships in ways more normal romantic comedies probably wouldn't. The internal conflict goes on prior to this movie really does a great job saying of how it all unravels. So, while Millie moving to the countryside and settling down, hoping to marry Tim is what she wants, Tim is at a different place in his life, chasing more unlikely goals than a normal job as a guitarist, and isn't at the same place ready to settle down. I like how she proposes to him in front of everyone in their friend group with literally a hand gesture, like, who does that? Like, what, would fusing your bodies together be cheaper than getting a real wedding ring? It's sometimes I like where you can tell the two do genuinely care about each other and want to be selfless, but you can't handle accepting them being at a different stage of their lives. I mean, them, not yourself. Or, that's the parallel I like. It's, we've all been in a relationship where there's a good enough reason to end the relationship that isn't because we don't love each other anymore, but because they've been together for so long they can't imagine who they are without each other. It's sometimes it hurts that someone you love is no longer in your life, not because you stop loving them, but things can get in the way. But the story is them at first trying to make sure they can still make it work. Tim and Millie argue, but they make it more about being cute with each other than out of malice. And you think at first, maybe in a non-horror movie, you imagine it could work out and Tim could move on. However, after the hike gone wrong, as they discover their legs sticking together like glue and they dismiss it, but it only gets worse. Tim has this new drive that he can't tell if it's a possession or part of like a past trauma that maybe is holding him back for being complacent. Like, though if I could give one criticism now, his backstory is a little confusing. Like, you're given this broad idea of why Tim is the way he is from his past, but it's not super well explained. Like, still, Tim is horrified and he starts losing himself, and it does a good job showing us a metaphor for toxic masculinity in a way that only a man like myself can explain it. Okay, jokes aside, he has this great drive towards Millie where he grows more frustrated he's not the same level she is. Her talking to a coworker named Jamie that makes him jealous, and even seems like he's going either insane or becoming dangerous in ways where without the possession this could feel real, though I cannot or will assume this is one for one what people go through. It's just a movie, it's a good metaphor, and I am not going to insert this onto people who probably don't want this as a comparison. It's about this relationship that when you meet eye to eye, either you're on the same level or they can't look away without thinking of the issues they have. Like, they love each other and they make it clear when they can, but people change and this is something forced upon them. It's not said in the film, but it is Tim's fault it's happening, even if it wasn't intentional, because he acts like he knew better, not to feel insecure or lesser. Saying this makes it more sound like this is about Tim than Millie, and I would say for the most part Tim is the more complex character than Millie when I think about it, but maybe she should just had just one more scene, maybe her getting along with her students or bonding with them to show why she's such a good teacher, and this is where she feels complete, unlike Tim, to really drive it home. Still, in the second half of the movie, the more Tim unravels, it becomes more about her in this relationship, where you can't figure out if maybe Tim is becoming this toxic danger because, well, okay, he's possessed. We know it. But there's this realism where every time she wants to end it, she doesn't want to be without someone who's this close to her and does still truly love her. Like, he isn't doing this out of malice. It's just he can't really explain, like, why he's suddenly this different version of himself. But this possession, it just holds him back from being a bad person, from improving himself. There's more I can go on and probably pretend like I actually know what I'm talking about. Movies have different interpretations, and this is what I got out of it. And if it's something too personal, there's no one going to hold it over you if you don't want to see it. Or maybe it's nothing, it's just body horror. I'm not sure how much of the plot I can dissect without spoilers, so I'll move on to the technical elements, and boy was I scared. I think the movie at times does feel a bit jump scary, like, it's gonna happen, but cliche or not, sometimes it works. Like, the first one reminded me of The Sixth Sense, where in a way, which maybe it's a stretch, but if you compare the tent scene to the bedroom scene at the beginning, maybe I'm not wrong. Still, the more powerful it becomes, the more scary it gets. And sometimes it does feel a little inconsistent how the attraction with them works. Like, sometimes it's a sex drive, sometimes it's blood, like an open wound. Maybe it's being farther apart that drives them all the more wanting to be together, or at least one half. Like, maybe it's something on a rewatch that would be more clear to me, but thinking about it now in retrospect, there's a good span of time where sometimes Tim being possessed is what happens instead of it being more a literal still way where, okay, look, still when I talk about this, Millie gained more time in the second half, and she becomes possessed, the more the line of reality begins to blur. Like, who's the more dominant one in a relationship, and the themes of needing each other to be a complete person. Like, to me, it's about when you're in a relationship, is treating each other as equals, like 50-50, but it's 60-40 or even 7-30, and so on and so forth. It could make or break it. The acting is just phenomenal, with Dave Franco and Alison Brie giving what might be career best performances that will surely be overlooked. Franco does, since being the more complex character, get more of a chance to show off, but they are equals in the story, and that battle I said over being equals compared to who's on top drives the story. Sure, it's something where I know these two are a real-life couple, but I can believe the characters in this movie are in a relationship in the vacuum. I love other story elements like the Jamie character where first I thought I figured it out and something distracts me when it was there all along, and the story perfectly balances this with good dark humor. The first time the movie truly gets Cronenberg-esque, their reaction towards it is bizarre yet funny in a way where it's ridiculous, but I'm still scared what will happen. I didn't know a lot of the time where this was going, and I love being constantly on edge. It's the kind of dark comedy I like where it's less mean-spirited and more so it just goes to places we wouldn't even like to imagine, but takes the plunge. It makes more sense if you've seen the movie, what I just said. Okay, so I don't know if maybe the way it reflects someone's relationship specifically might turn them away from this, but as a piece of its own original, engaging horror film, I think the script and directing is brilliant. Though, and maybe it was just my screen, it was hard to see at times, and I couldn't tell if it's because it's a horror movie, it's intentional, like we're getting kept in the shadows, or it was just poor lighting. But not mattering about that is that it is still well directed from a timing standpoint with the editing and the performances, and I love the build up towards everything and the character complexity between Tim and Millie, with Franco and Brie giving some of the best performances of the year. The way the ending has so many ways you can interpret it, since I didn't know how it was going to end. Like, you kind of know, but you don't know if it's for better or worse. It really made me uncomfortable, but also happy in a weird way. The way, like, as I said, sometimes, unlike other romantic comedies that are more normal, this is willing to get to places. Sometimes, it challenges you, for better or worse. I can't say I exactly expected that, but I'm glad. And, I never thought if I inserted myself into this scenario, how this happens, I'm like, I wouldn't be stupid enough for how to happen. But, if it would happen to me, I have to imagine, what would I do in this scenario? And that's... Look, it honestly speaks to me in a way, The Banshees of Inisherin, if I had to make a random comparison, where it's a technically impressive movie in every way, but personally, it's not my thing. It's objectively is a great work of art, but the relatability to me about how it presents itself is like, I don't know if this is how I would say I could describe what I would go through. It's just, but this feels more far removed personally for who I am as a person, that sometimes when a movie's art speaks to you, that The Banshees of Inisherin didn't speak to me in the way this movie does, even if that movie is less flawed than this movie. But like Superman, this has higher highs to me. And this speaks to me in a way more movies than I want to explain just work for me, but I don't know how. And I haven't fully unpacked it yet, and there's still so much in spoilers. I don't really know if I could explain. All the elements are great. I'm sure it's modern day, so it's not like the costumes or the production that's the most mind-blowing, but it's all good. The editing and cinematography, it's great, and it's gruesome, but relatable. It's funny, but it can still be taken seriously. This is just a great horror movie, dark comedy, even a relationship movie. The whole joke of the marketing of, it's the perfect date night movie and horror movie. Kind of. It really is something where it feels like a real couple we're witnessing, and whether or not it's relatable to you, it depends, but for me, as a great work of fiction in its own right, I love it. It's a great horror movie, knowing that anyone going in may not know what to expect, but they can find something in it they can relate to, for better or worse. And for me, it may not exactly be the perfect horror movie, one of the best films of the year so far. I mean, sure, stuff still on a higher pedestal is Sinners and The Life of Chuck, but for me, I was blown away when it all comes together at the end. I am so tired from talking. I give Together an 8.5 out of 10. Thank you for watching as always. Let me know if I should wear my hat more times in reviews so you don't have to see my terrible hair.